Chapter 2691. As easy as breaking a dead branch off a tree, the Divine Sword Army consisted of 50 Heaven Ultimate Gods, with each being the cream of the crop among Heaven Ultimate Gods. They were an army fighting against the 7 Absolute Palace Experts in teams of 5 in an absolute advantage, with the battle situation could be said to be leaning to one side. The 7 Absolute Palace Experts had lost their backbone and their will to fight following the 7 Absolute Palace Masters' death, which immediately caused the situation to lean towards one side. Their failure was imminent and became as easy as breaking dry branches off a tree. The 7 Absolute Palace Experts had completely lost their capabilities in resisting and could only be slaughtered by the Divine Sword Army. Whoever surrenders can avoid death, and those who continue to resist will be killed without any hesitation. Jian Wushuang's cold voice could be heard reverberating in the entire Golden Prison. The 7 Absolute Palace Experts were extremely happy when they heard his voice. A huge number of the experts gave up resisting and directly surrendered in front of Jian Wushuang in the next moment. Most of the experts would choose to surrender without hesitation if their lives were at stake. However, there was still a small number of stubborn experts who were naturally slaughtered by the Divine Sword Army. The Divine Sword Army moved swiftly as the 7 Absolute Palace Experts apart from those who surrendered were killed. In this battle, Jian Wushuang had seen the Divine Sword Army's combat prowess. The combat prowess unleashed by a team of 5 under the magic formation support was astonishing. Putting the divine power depletion aside, the fact that the attack damage they received was shared among those 5 people had caused none of the Divine Sword Army's members to fall in the battle, despite many 7 Absolute Palace Experts having died. This is indeed a legion. Jian Wushuang secretly gasped in admiration. The combat strength between an expert legion set up with money and a team formed with the union of normal cultivators were different. The 50-men Divine Sword Army alone was just a preliminary formation, and many things were imperfect. The magic formation they used was slightly normal, but their combat power was still extremely strong. This caused Jian Wushuang to uncontrollably think about the first-ranked legion on the Danyang continent, the Crimson Stone Official Army. The Crimson Stone Official Army had a total of 1,000 Heaven Ultimate Gods during its peak, with each of those Heaven Ultimate Gods being elites. They had a great many brave warriors, while their military and magic formations are perfect. This was an extremely invincible legion under the personal leadership of the Crimson Stone Saint and his many other Heaven Ultimate Gods. The Divine Sword Army was still very much weaker when compared to a legion of that level. Immediately send a message to inform Dong Shui that the 7 Absolute Temple has been conquered by us. Ask her to come over with some people to take over the 7 Absolute City and arrange a place for the 7 Absolute Palace Experts to settle down. Make sure to use those who are useful, ordered Jian Wushuang. Yes. Long Shan nodded and immediately sent a message to Dong Shui. After that, Jian Wushuang and the Divine Sword Army only waited a day in the 7 Absolute City before Dong Shui rushed over with many Sword Alliance experts. The Sword Alliance was originally the integration of 2 third-rated forces. However, there were many experts in the Sword Alliance at that moment due to the many resources which Jian Wushuang provided within that year, on top of the fact they recruited many others. The Divine Sword Army alone had 50 Heaven Ultimate Gods, with another 50 Heaven Ultimate Gods in the Alliance. At this moment, Dong Shui had brought a group of the Heaven Ultimate Gods to meet up with Jian Wushuang. Alliance Master, this place is... Dong Shui looked at the surroundings in surprise. She had already guessed what happened here, but she was still extremely surprised by it. Jian Wushuang had hurried over with the Divine Sword Army and wiped out the 7 Absolute Palace without any preparations or discussions beforehand. I'll leave the remaining steps for you to resolve, as I have other matters needing my attention, ordered Jian Wushuang before glancing over at Long Shan. Long Shan, gather the Divine Sword Army. We're leaving now. We're leaving now. Long Shan was caught by surprise. Alliance Master, where are we going this time? Bloodwater City, said Jian Wushuang. The Bloodwater Gang's turf. Bloodwater City? Alliance Master, do you plan to continue by making a move toward the Bloodwater Gang? Long Shan and Dong Shui widened their eyes. Was his appetite not too huge for immediately making a move towards the Bloodwater Gang after winning over the 7 Absolute Temple? I'm personally leading the Divine Sword Army this time. It's also the Divine Sword Army's first battle. How can we only take down one force, the 7 Absolute Temple? The Bloodwater City isn't too far from the 7 Absolute City. We can arrive there in half a day with our speed, and the Bloodwater Gang won't be able to react under such circumstances. Follow me. Jian Wushuang ordered without further explanation. Many of the soldiers in the Divine Sword Army saw with their own eyes Jian Wushuang swiftly killing the 7 Absolute Temple Master. His strength naturally increased their obedience toward him, and there were no hesitations when they heard Jian Wushuang's orders. The Divine Sword Army immediately took action and headed for the Bloodwater City. The Bloodwater Gang located in the Bloodwater City was also one of the third-rated forces near the Sword Alliance. However, it was much weaker compared to the 7 Absolute Temple. Although the Divine Sword Army had just experienced an intense battle against the 7 Absolute Temple, it did not suffer any huge losses and still contained its high combat prowess. There was no need to mention Jian Wushuang, who was definitely in good shape. The same situation soon happened. The place was also forcefully wiped out and fell apart like broken twigs. Just like the 7 Absolute Temple, normal third-rated force with only a single peak Heaven Ultimate God was unable to stop Jian Wushuang and his Divine Sword Army. The Bloodwater Gangmaster was killed by Jian Wushuang, whilst his direct followers also died in the Divine Sword Army's hands within 15 minutes. The remaining Bloodwater Gang experts thereafter surrendered. As a result, Jian Wushuang had also obtained the Bloodwater Gang. Dong Xue thought she was dreaming when she rushed to the Bloodwater Gang with her subordinates and saw the situation there. It had to be known that the previous Dragon Divine Gang had constantly suffered from conflicts against the other third-rated forces near them. However, those few forces were too close with each other such that it was difficult to create a huge crisis for the other parties. The reason Dragon Divine Gang got into their previous situation was because of the Dragon Divine Gangmaster's carelessness. He ended up being killed by the Purple Beast Alliance Master, who found the opportunity to do so. However, their new Alliance Master had swiftly taken down 2 third-rated forces within a mere 2 days, less than a year after the Sword Alliance was formed with means beyond what others could do. Alliance Master, shall we continue to the next force? Long Shan asked as he stood beside Jian Wushuang. He had previously felt that Jian Wushuang was slightly crazy, but those continuous battles had given him huge confidence. He was looking forward to Jian Wushuang leading the Divine Sword Army and attacking the remaining third-rated forces. He was not the only one, as most of the Divine Sword Army soldiers felt the same. Jian Wushuang had earlier announced that they could take over their dead enemies' interspatial rings in such battles, hence it was natural for them wanting to continue conquering others. One of the reasons being they were enjoying the killing spree, while the other was that all of them had somewhat benefited after experiencing both battles, with some gaining huge amounts of spoils. Chapter 2692. Support of a powerful clan. Continue to the next force. Jian Wushuang slowly shook his head. This will be the end of this trip. Our Sword Alliance has huge gains as we've gained control of the lands that originally belonged to the 7 Absolute Temple and Bloodwater Gang after continuously wiping them out. If we continue our path, brothers of the Divine Sword Army might be able to take it, but the remaining third-rated forces aren't dumb. I'm sure they have already gotten news about what our Sword Alliance is doing and will be prepared. There's a possibility that the remaining 3 forces have already gathered together. We might not be able to gain an upper hand if we continue our journey of conquering others. Let's focus on integrating the lands we've just gained and talk about this later. All right. Long Shan nodded. The Divine Sword Army soldiers were slightly disappointed when they knew the journey of conquering others was not continuing, but they quickly settled down. They knew that they were the Sword Alliance's sharpest sword, and they were not in a hurry, as there would surely be a lot more conquering battles like what they had experienced that day. As the Sword Alliance was busy integrating the territories that once belonged to the 7 Absolute Temple and Bloodwater Gang, the rulers of the remaining 3 third-rated forces had already gathered together just as Jian Wushuang expected. They were in a huge mansion where the Corpse Palace was located. In the huge hall, a bald man who was like a bag of bones was sitting on the throne. There was a wine glass on the table in front of him that was filled with crimson-colored blood. It was the blood of a virgin. The bald old man's face was filled with anticipation and desire as he looked at the virgin's blood in the glass. He picked up the glass and slightly wet the corner of his lips before gulping everything down. He had a prolonged intoxicated and content expression on his face after drinking the blood. Palace Master Jiu Mo is still extremely laid back when we're already in an imminent crisis. A slightly unfriendly voice could be heard. The person speaking was a middle-aged man in long robes seated in front of a table at the end of the hall. The middle-aged man in long robes was emitting a powerful peak heaven ultimate god aura. There was a lady in green clothing sitting opposite of him who had her eyes closed but a serious expression on her face nonetheless. The bald old man had finally put down the wine glass in his hands and glanced over at the duo sitting underneath before smiling and asked, "An imminent crisis? Everything is going well, so where is this imminent crisis coming from?" Palace Master Gu Mo. Do you really not know, or are you faking it? The Sword Alliance has already taken action. They managed to conquer both the 7 Absolute Temple and Bloodwater Gang in less than 2 days. At this rate, the next force the Sword Alliance will be aiming for could be my Divine Dragon Pavilion or the Purple Dress House. They might even directly take action towards your Corpse Palace. The Sword Alliance is coming at such a menacing rate. We might follow in the footsteps of 7 Absolute Temple and Bloodwater Gang if we don't prepare ourselves, shouted the middle-aged man in long robes who was also the Divine Dragon Pavilion Master in a deep voice. Brother Xianxia, aren't you worrying unnecessarily? Putting the fact that the Sword Alliance might not even take action against both of you. Even if they really take action against you, you shouldn't be afraid either, as all of us are third-rated forces after all, said the bald old man slowly, who was also one of the Corpse Palace Masters. Palace Master Gu Mo. The Corpse Palace had 2 Palace Masters, Gu Mo and Shamo. Both of them were peak heaven ultimate gods. Between the two of them, Shamo was much stronger but seldom involved himself in mundane affairs. Gu Mo was the one taking care of the Corpse Palace's daily affairs. Palace Master Gu Mo, I'm not in the mood for jokes at such important times, said the long-robed middle-aged man coldly. He clearly understood the strength of his Divine Dragon Pavilion. As a third-rated force, the Divine Dragon Pavilion's strength was similar to the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gang. If the Sword Alliance was able to wipe out both forces so easily, they could easily wipe out the Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House too. It looks like Brother Xianxia is really nervous this time. Gu Mo smiled, but the expression on his face gradually changed to a serious one. No matter what, the Sword Alliance has gone overboard this time and has already become a serious threat to us. Everybody will feel insecure if this continues, hence why don't we make an appointment with the Sword Alliance Master and have a good discussion with him to resolve this matter. Make an appointment with him to have a discussion. The long-robed middle-aged man was extremely angry. Gu Mo, what are you thinking? The Sword Alliance has already openly taken action and we only plan to make an appointment with the Alliance Master to discuss ways to resolve this matter. What a joke! Is this a joke to you? What great ideas do you have then, Brother Xianxia? Gu Mo asked. Simple, the Sword Alliance is a great threat and its ambitions are clear to all of us. We cannot be sitting ducks and need to grab this chance before the Sword Alliance has full control over the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gang's territory. The 3 of us should join hands and wipe out this Sword Alliance before they grow too strong, said the long-robed middle-aged man seriously. I agree. The green-clothed lady who had been quiet while sitting there in an upright manner also slightly nodded. Both of them had a prior discussion between themselves before coming over to the Corpse Palace together. Gu Mo smiled indifferently. The both of you agree to directly take action and wipe out the Sword Alliance. However, have you thought about the fact that it isn't so easy to wipe out the Sword Alliance? If I'm right, the Sword Alliance has a strong power secretly supporting them. What? The expressions on both the long-robed middle-aged man and green-clothed lady changed as they immediately turned their heads to look at Gu Mo. Gu Mo continued. I'm just making assumptions, but there's a huge possibility it's true. The Sword Alliance originated from the merger of Dragon Divine Gang and Purple Beast Alliance. Both forces were third-rated forces without many resources. However, the Sword Alliance has been wantonly raising a large army after Suhan appeared and integrated both forces to form the Sword Alliance. They even offered very attractive terms. Third-rated forces like us offer 1 million primordial stones as payment to a primary-level heaven ultimate god for 100 years of service. On the other hand, the Sword Alliance is so rich that they offer 3 million primordial stones to any primary-level heaven ultimate gods who joins and obeys them for 100 years. Their offer is 3 times that of ours. They attracted many experts to join them because they had such attractive terms. This is why the Sword Alliance's strength increased by so much within 1 year, till the point that they could wipe out the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater gang. The Sword Alliance can afford such high payments because they owned a huge amount of resources and had substantial financial support. However, where did these resources and financial support come from? Only relying on high-level Heaven Ultimate God Su-Han is not enough. That's why I'm certain that the Sword Alliance has a huge powerful clan supporting them from behind the scenes. This powerful clan might be an extremely strong second-rated force on the Danyang continent. However, it might also be a really powerful first-rate force. Chapter 2693. A treacherous dinner. It doesn't matter if the Sword Alliance has a strong second-rated or first-rate clan supporting them. We cannot easily offend them, said Ji Mo. The long-robed middle-aged man and the lady from the purple dress house looked sheepishly at each other as they heard this before nodding to themselves. It was true that the Sword Alliance had lots of resources, and it looked like there was a powerful clan secretly supporting them. If a clan secretly supported them, the Sword Alliance was not what several small third-rated clans could offend. That is why we cannot make any rash moves. Let's invite the Sword Alliance Master over and have a discussion with him. We need to understand if any powerful clans support the Sword Alliance and inquire about his true purpose. We shall act based on the situation later on, said Ji Mo. Act based on the situation. The long-robed middle-aged man and the green-clothed lady dress looked at each other. Both of them naturally understood the meaning behind Ji Mo's words. Both of us will make our move first if that's the case. Palace Master Ji Mo, please send a message to the Sword Alliance as soon as possible, said the long-robed middle-aged man. Don't worry, Brother Shenlong. I'll immediately send the message to Sword Alliance, but I have no idea if the Sword Alliance Master will attend the dinner or not, said Ji Mo. The long-robed middle-aged man and the green-clothed lady did not stay any longer. They soon turned and left. However, Ji Mo's eyes turned cold after they left, and even had a weird smile on his face. Big brother, have you heard everything? Ji Mo started mumbling to himself. However, an old man who looked cold and did not have any breath of life in him slowly appeared as he finished speaking. This old man was the other corpse palace master. Shamo, the Divine Dragon Pavilion and the Purple Dress House came to our corpse palace proactively after the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater gang were continuously wiped out by the Sword Alliance. Ha ha. Even the gods are helping me. Ji Mo laughed arbitrarily. Shamo coldly said, our corpse palace was originally worried about not having a way to centralize the leaders of these forces. However, the Sword Alliance has helped us in a big way. We've waited for so long to finally get this chance. Star Fort has been prepared since long ago, and I only need to send a message to get them here. As for the Sword Alliance, I'm leaving it to you to send the message. Make sure the Alliance Master comes over no matter what. Don't worry, big brother. Our corpse palace has never had any conflict with the Sword Alliance, and I even sent an expensive gift when the Sword Alliance was first founded. I did that to make the Alliance Master have a good impression on me. Now that I'm lowering my attitude to personally invite him, I don't think the Alliance Master will refuse me, said Ji Mo with a smile. That's good. Shamo slightly nodded. The people of the Corpse Palace soon sent a token to the Sword Alliance, which was placed in front of Jian Wushuang at that moment. Jian Wushuang looked at the message on the token as he sat on the throne. His facial expressions changed. Both Corpse Palace Masters personally invited me to attend a dinner at the Corpse Palace. They're lowering their positions by so much. Dinner. What does the Corpse Palace plan to do? Xiao Taishan, Dong Shui, Long Shan, and several others stood in front of Jian Wushuang with weird expressions on their faces. Our Sword Alliance has just wiped out the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater gang. I'm sure the Corpse Palace has something else in mind when they invite you to the dinner at this moment, said Xiao Taishan. If I assumed correctly, people from Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House will be attending that dinner too, said Dong Shui. Perhaps. Jian Wushuang nodded. He could also notice that this dinner might be one with planned treachery hidden behind that was aimed at him. Alliance Master, it matters not if you don't attend the dinner since it's so dangerous, said He Yang. That's right. We don't need to be afraid of the Corpse Palace based on our Sword Alliance's strength right now. We can ignore this dinner. Zishan also agreed. With that said, I don't plan to completely turn against the Corpse Palace now. The Corpse Palace previously gave me an expensive gift and are even lowering their stance right now. It's hard to explain my absence when they've honored me to this extent. Apart from that, I keep having the feeling that this dinner is not going to be so simple, said Jian Wushuang. It's not that simple. Xiao Taishan and the others wondered. The Corpse Palace acts so weirdly. The Corpse Palace is the strongest among the third-rated forces surrounding us and even has the support of the Star Fort behind them. Why didn't the Corpse Palace contend for hegemony when they have such a huge advantage? They even treat the remaining third-rated forces around them politely and humbly. It's really abnormal. The Corpse Palace even sent gifts to express good intentions when our Sword Alliance was first founded. As the saying goes, one who's unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. I have this constant feeling that the Corpse Palace is planning something. We should be able to see Corpse Palace's true intentions in this dinner, mumbled Jian Wushuang, who was deep in his thoughts as he tapped his fingers on the armchair. He finally made up his mind after some time. I'm going to this dinner. Alliance Master. Xiao Taishan and the others were surprised. Jian Wushuang waved his hand as he smiled. Don't worry. Although the dinner might be dangerous, it's impossible to make me stay with only the Corpse Palace's strength. Not only the Corpse Palace, but even the Star Fort behind them also aren't capable of doing it. He was confident about his strength and means. Although there were people in this ancient god domain who could kill him, they did not exist in this Danyang continent. Let alone just a third-rated force in the Danyang continent. Xiao Taishan and the others glanced at each other but stopped persuading him when they heard that. However, Long Shan still said, Alliance Master. Why don't I lead the Divine Sword Army and wait outside the Corpse Palace for safety precautions? If anything happens during the dinner, you only need to send a message and the Divine Sword Army can attack them. That sounds great. Jian Wushuang nodded. Long Shan immediately commanded the Divine Sword Army to make preparations after a decision was made. 3 days later, Jian Wushuang left for the Corpse Palace. The Corpse Palace was extremely strong among the third-rated forces and had control over a large territory. 3 townships. Corpse City was where the old den of the Corpse Palace was located at. The Divine Sword Army was left outside of the Corpse City as Jian Wushuang entered the city alone. Jiyu Moho had been waiting there for him. Immediately walked forward to welcome Jian Wushuang once he entered the city. Ha ha. I've long heard about Alliance Master Su Han's reputation, but we were never fated to meet previously. Finally, I've gotten to meet you in person today. Jiyu Mo looked extremely welcoming. I've also admired Palace Master Jiyu Mo's since a long time ago. It's a pleasure to meet you today. I wonder if Palace Master Shimo is also here. Jian Wushuang politely asked. Big Brother is also here, but he's in retreat all year long and will not be able to welcome you. I hope Alliance Master Su Han won't be unhappy because of that, said Jiyu Mo with a smile. Chapter 2694. Alliance. Jian Wushuang and Jiyu Mo had hidden agendas of their own. However, they had not truly fallen out, so they greeted each other during their first meeting. Alliance Master Su Han, please come in. Jiyu Mo led Jian Wushuang walking towards the insides of the Corpse Palace and soon arrived in a big hall. This was a glorious and splendor hall with tables placed on both sides and almost 100 moving beauties dancing in the middle of the hall. The dancing beauties did not stop after Jian Wushuang and Jiyu Mo entered the hall. However, a long-robed middle-aged man and a green-clothed lady stood up from behind the tables on both sides. Alliance Master Su Han, said the long-robed middle-aged man. Greetings to you, Alliance Master Su Han. The green-clothed lady looked rather humble. Oh, both Master Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master are also here. Jian Wushuang glanced at the both of them without any signs of surprise. He knew this would be an extraordinary dinner. Apart from the Corpse Palace, Divine Dragon Gang and the Purple Dress House would come forward. The two of us will not turn down a personal invitation from Palace Master Jiyu Mo, said the green-clothed lady. Purple Dress House Master. Ha ha. Everybody, take your seats. Jiyu Mo also sat down in front of the table at the highest point as he waved his hand and smiled loudly. Jian Wushuang and 2 others quickly found their respective places and sat down. It's been such an honor that all three of you can gather at my corpse palace today. Come, let me call out a toast in your honor, said Jiu Mo with a smile as he raised the glass in his hand. Jian Wushuang, Sheng Long, and the purple dress house master also raised their glasses to drink together. Jiu Mo wiped the edge of his mouth after finishing his glass of wine and started to speak seriously. Honorable guests, I've invited the three of you to this dinner tonight for one reason only. Jian Wushuang, Sheng Long, and the purple dress house master immediately turned to look at Jiu Mo. I really want to see what this Jiu Mo wants to do. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly in secret. Honorable guests, all of you know that the Danyang continent is huge with many forces, powerful organizations, and clans on this piece of land. If we put aside the top 5 peak organizations, there are already many first and second-rated forces on the Danyang continent. As for third-rated forces like ours, there are as many as the stars in the sky, said Jiu Mo loudly. Jian Wushuang's facial expression did not change. However, Sheng Long and the purple dress house master frowned. They previously went looking for Jiu Mo so that Jiu Mo would hold that dinner in hopes of resolving issues with the Sword Alliance. They wanted to investigate if there was really a powerful clan supporting the Sword Alliance and the Alliance Master's intentions. However, Jiu Mo mentioned the situation in the Danyang continent as soon as he opened his mouth. That caused Sheng Long and the purple dress house master to feel slightly odd. On the other hand, Jiu Mo continued, the situation of the Danyang continent is too complex with extremely crazed fights between the forces. Third-rated forces like Corpse Palace, Sword Alliance, Divine Dragon Gang, and Purple Dress House are like lonely kayaks when caught in such crazy fights. We're so vulnerable that we'll be wiped out and taken over by others at any minute. I believe all of you have the same thoughts as I have. Jiu Mo looked over at the trio sitting beneath him with a smile on his face. Jian Wushuang only gave an indifferent smile as a response. However, the facial expression of Sheng Long and the purple dress house master had completely changed. They could recognize there was some hidden meaning in Jiu Mo's words, and matters were not going as per what they initially agreed. Palace Master Jiu Mo, what are you trying to say? Sheng Long asked in his deep voice. Ha ha. What I want to say is very simple. All 4 third-rated forces Corpse Palace, Sword Alliance, Divine Dragon Gang, and Purple Dress House are located in the same area. We are pitifully weak if we remain alone, as none of us will be able to fight if we meet any second-rated forces or a really powerful expert. However, if all 4 of us unite like strings twisted into a piece of rope, even the strongest second-rated force could not easily take action against us. Won't that be nice, as our opportunity of surviving in this Danyang continent would increase? Jiu Mo said with a smile. Strings twisted into a piece of rope? I wonder how Palace Master Jiu Mo plans to do this. Sheng Liang asked. An alliance. The 4 of us should unite and form a new alliance, replied Jiu Mo. Alliance? What you mean to say is a merger, right? Sheng Long's eyes grew cold. You can say that too. Jiu Mo nodded gleefully. The faces of Sheng Long and the purple dress house master completely darkened after hearing that. They had finally understood that the real purpose of Jiu Mo's dinner was not to take action towards the Sword Alliance. Uniting them was just an excuse, as Jiu Mo's true aim was to take over these 3 forces. Focusing their aim at the Sword Alliance and investigating the origins of the Sword Alliance was just an excuse to gather them in the Corpse Palace. After all, Sheng Long and the purple dress house master would not join any of Jiu Mo's dinner at the Corpse Palace under normal circumstances. However, Sheng Long and purple dress house master were the ones that proactively sought the Corpse Palace out this time. Palace Master Jiu Mo, we're invited here to resolve the matter where the Sword Alliance recently destroyed both the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gang. My purple dress house is not interested in the alliance that you mentioned, said the purple dress house master directly. Sheng Long also seriously said, the same applies to my Divine Dragon Pavilion. There's no need to continue if Palace Master Jiu Mo held this dinner intending to form an alliance. I'll make my move first. Sheng Long stood up and walked towards the exit after he spoke. The purple dress house master also stood up to leave, while Jian Wushuang was the only one left sitting there. Jiu Mo looked on with a smile without any intention of stopping them as the 2 of them left. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Sheng Long and the purple dress house master when they just arrived at the entrance of the hall. My guests, The dinner has just begun. Why are you in a hurry to leave? A cold voice could be heard coming from that person's mouth. It was an elder with a cold and lifeless figure whose voice also sounded as though there was no life in it. Shemo. The faces of Sheng Long and the purple dress house master darkened. Shemo Jiu Mo's elder brother was an extremely strong peak-level heaven ultimate god. At the very least, he was much stronger than both Jiu Mo and Sheng Long. However, Shemo was not the only one who appeared at that moment. Two other figures were standing behind him. They were a man and woman whose aura had also reached the peak heaven ultimate god realm. Chapter 2695. True Intentions Unveiled. The two of them are experts from Star Fort. The faces of Sheng Long and the purple dress house master darkened when they saw the peak heaven ultimate gods behind Shemo. They had heard Corpse Palace had a certain relationship with Star Fort. It could even be said that Star Fort was secretly supporting the Corpse Palace. However, those were only rumors with nothing concrete. However, the doubt regarding Corpse Palace and Star Fort's relationship had been cleared the moment those two peak heaven ultimate gods appeared before them. Palace Master Shemo, what's the meaning of this? The Purple House Master stared at Shemo in front of her. Ha ha. Our Corpse Palace sincerely invites both of you to attend this meeting. However, you want to leave when the dinner has just started. Won't that mean you're not giving the Corpse Palace any face? Therefore, it'll be best for the two of you to return to your seats, said Shemo coldly. Both Sheng Long and the Purple Housemaster were secretly anxious. However, the two of them suppressed their anger at the bottom of their hearts and returned to their seats upon seeing the two experts from Star Fort standing behind Shemo. At that moment, all of them realized what the Corpse Palace had been planning from the beginning. Based on the situation before them, they could see it was not a day or two since the Corpse Palace had made such plans. Even though the Corpse Palace did not previously show much arrogance and had never proactively attacked the third-rated forces around them, it was because those third-rated forces were too large such that once the Corpse Palace wiped even one of them out, the remaining third-rated forces would immediately unite and deal with the Corpse Palace, which they would then be out of solutions. Therefore, the Corpse Palace could only wait for a chance to gather all the forces' leaders and capture all of them in one move. The Corpse Palace finally managed to invite the various forces' leaders due to the incident with the Sword Alliance. At that moment, leaders of all three forces, the Sword Alliance, Divine Dragon Pavilion, and Purple Dress House, had gathered in the Corpse Palace, and the Corpse Palace finally revealed their hidden intentions. They bared their fangs toward the various forces' leaders who were like sitting ducks. The beautiful dancers in the hall had already excused themselves. The ambience in the hall turned extremely quiet. Sheng Long and the Purple House Master quietly sat by the tables with ashen expressions on their faces. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang still had an extremely indifferent expression. Alliance Master Su Han. Jiu Mo slowly looked over at Jian Wushuang while being seated at the highest position. What do Alliance Master Su Han think about my suggestion? Jiu Mo stared at Jian Wushuang as Shemo also looked over at him. They were already too lazy to care about Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master. The Corpse Palace did not place much attention on Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master, as those two representing the Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House were like sitting ducks to them. They had to agree even if they did not want to. However, both Palace Masters still had to pay attention to the Sword Alliance Master. The Sword Alliance was formed around 1 year ago but had already taken over 4 cities. Together with the fact that they had many experts in their alliance, they had already surpassed the Corpse Palace, with the only difference of the Sword Alliance not having any real peak heaven ultimate god until that point in time. Although Alliance Master Su Han was only a high-level heaven ultimate god, it was fortunate for them that his combat power was not weaker than peak heaven ultimate gods. I think what Palace Master Jiu Mo said makes sense. A third-rated force is really not eye-catching in the Danyang continent and can disappear just like that. However, if all 4 forces can be integrated and form a singular force, our overall power will skyrocket. We won't be considered weak even amongst second-rated forces. At that time, we will have stronger powers in the Danyang continent with the possibility of getting more profits, said Jian Wushuang slowly. Oh, it looks like Alliance Master Su Han agrees. Jiu Mo looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Alliance Master Su Han. Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master also looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. They originally wanted to work together with the Corpse Palace and take action against the Sword Alliance. At that moment, they had planned to unite with the Sword Alliance and fight off Corpse Palace together upon observing the Corpse Palace's ambitions. Who knew that Su Han would agree with the union mentioned by Ji Mo? It's true that Sword Alliance Su Han has the cardinal principles in his mind. It's no wonder the Sword Alliance can grow to such an extent in such a short time with an alliance master like yourself. Ji Mo laughed heartily. I'm not done speaking yet. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. I agree with the union and even the integration of all four forces. However, I wonder who'll be the leader of this new force. Can't Alliance Master Su Han see who'll be the leader? In this world, the strongest earns the most respect and our Corpse Alliance is the strongest amongst our four forces, said Ji Mo with a smile. Jian Wushuang slowly stood up with a slight smile at the corners of his mouth as he spoke. Really? I don't think so. In my opinion, your Corpse Palace is also a third-rated force that's unpresentable. You're no different from the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gang that I previously wiped out. The eyes of Ji Mo and Shimo suddenly narrowed when they heard that. Alliance Master Su Han, are you challenging the Corpse Palace's authority? Shimo coldly asked. Authority? A mere third-rated force dares talk about authority? You're just 2 old dogs together with 2 peak heaven ultimate gods from Star Fort. Do you plan to swallow up my Sword Alliance with such a lineup? You guys are really dreaming here. Jian Wushuang smiled in disdain. The moment he finished speaking, a wave of majestic divine power suddenly surged out of his body like an awakened god. This wave of overwhelming golden divine power concentrated speedily behind him. A humongous golden god shadow formed in the blink of an eye. The extremely tall 50,000 feet golden god shadow was not something the hall could contain. Therefore, the hall's upper part immediately blasted open upon its appearance. Do you want to fight? Shimo's eyes grew cold as the aura of a peak heaven ultimate god burst outward in an instant. Although they were all peak heaven ultimate god, Shimo's divine power was much stronger than the Purple Beast Alliance Master and 7 Absolute Palace Master whom Jian Wushuang killed. Shimo's combat power was much stronger than ordinary peak heaven ultimate gods. Meanwhile, Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master's eyes suddenly lit up. The Corpse Palace had invited 2 helpers from the Star Fort, added to a total of 4 peak heaven ultimate gods. The 2 of them dared not fight against Corpse Palace as Shimo was also incredibly strong. However, everything was different at that moment when Su Han took action. Although Su Han was just a high-level heaven ultimate god, he was someone who previously killed several peak heaven ultimate gods. He might even win in that fight against Shimo. Chapter 2696. The Star Forts for Wu You're really Shimo. This divine power alone is much stronger than any peak heaven ultimate gods. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently as he could feel the striking strength Shimo had. However, this degree of power isn't enough. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. Boom! A huge surge of golden divine power grew and immediately turned into an endless sea of golden divine power. This golden divine power sea swept across and crazily impacted every direction. The huge hall they were at directly shattered under the impact as the golden divine power sea continued to expand. Shimo humphed coldly when he saw that before he unleashed a huge amount of grey aura following a humming sound. Those grey auras were strands of lifeless aura, stagnant and spiritless. It was the death law Shimo comprehended and mastered. The grey strands of air engulfed their surroundings and crazily collided with Jian Wushuang's golden divine power sea. In a short time, they were stuck in a complete stalemate as there was nothing they could do to each other. Your understanding of death law is extremely high to be able to block my golden divine power sea and prevent the golden prison's formation. How about this then? Jian Wushuang scoffed before a majestic sword essence exploded with a slight movement of his thoughts. The densely packed sword essence rushed straight into the skies and covered the entire territory in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang had opened up his perfect sword world that erupted completely before covering an entire area of 100,000 miles. Shimo immediately displayed his principal world when he felt the shocking sword essence. His principal world was also of the profound achievement, but at first contact, Clatter Shimo's principal world was mercilessly crushed without any chance of struggling. In the blink of an eye, Shimo's principal world had crumbled from the suppression. A huge suppression affected Shimo such that even his facial expression changed. How's that possible? He had no idea Jian Wushuang's sword world would be so strong. Both our principal worlds are of the profound achievement. My principal world had been extended to at least 50,000 miles, but there was no room for it to even struggle. Could his principal world possibly have already extended to 70,000 or even 80,000 miles? Shimo mumbled. Shimo suffered a great suppression effect due to the complete collapse of his principal world, causing his overall strength to be weakened. The death law powers coming from him were also weakened. It was originally comparable to Jian Wushuang's golden divine power C and was in a stalemate. At that moment, he was steadily being defeated and looked like it was going to completely disperse, allowing Jian Wushuang's golden prison to resume its formation once again. All of a sudden, boom! Another principal world exploded open. That principal world was much stronger than Shimo's principal world. It directly rolled open and crazily impacted Jian Wushuang's sword world without being at a disadvantage. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. The other party's principal world must have reached the complete level for it to fight against his perfect profound achievement sword world. Complete level principal world was the realization of ordinary grand ultimate god. Who's that? Jian Wushuang immediately looked over at the source where the principal world burst forth, a middle-aged man in green robes who gave off an extremely holy aura as though being placed under the sunlight shower could be seen walking over slowly. The middle-aged man had an extremely charming smile on his face that caused people to be captivated by it. Everybody present could not help but look over at him after his appearance. This person. Jian Wushuang secretly relaxed after taking a look at that green-robed middle-aged man. Jian Wushuang originally thought he was a grand ultimate god since he was capable of creating a complete level principal world. There was a possibility a grand ultimate god from Star Fort was personally there. What happened today would be slightly troublesome if that was the case. However, that green-robed middle-aged man emitted divine powers at the peak heaven ultimate god realm. However, for his understanding of principle to be so high when he's just a peak heaven ultimate god only meant he would be extremely strong, much stronger compared to Shimo. I originally thought you can resolve this on your own based on your capabilities. Who knew I still had to personally take action in the end? The green-robed middle-aged man smiled indifferently as he spoke in his gentle yet prestigious voice. I don't want this, but Alliance Master Su Han is really strong, said Shimo with a bitter smile. The green-robed middle-aged man slowly walked toward Shimo before turning his gaze towards Jian Wushuang without any emotions in his eyes. Su Han, allow me to introduce the person standing beside me. He's Fu Wu from Star Fort. I wonder if you've heard about him. Shimo smiled coldly. Jian Wushuang did not react when the name Fu Wu was introduced. However, Sheng Long and the purple dress housemaster were surprised by it. Star Fort's Fu Wu. Heavenly Buddha, Fu Wu. A huge wave of emotions convulsed through their hearts. The name Fu Wu was extremely well known in the entire Danyang continent and both of them had heard about him. Heavenly Buddha Fu Wu was the preeminent figure just second to the Star Fort Master. Although he was only a peak heaven ultimate god, it was rumored he managed to survive one or two moves even when met the ordinary primary level grand ultimate gods. Among the many peak heaven ultimate god experts in the entire Danyang continent, Fu Wu was good enough to be in the top 10. It had to be mentioned that the Danyang continent had a vast territory with many forces having a peak heaven ultimate god overseeing ordinary third-rated forces. There were a huge number of heaven ultimate gods in those forces, and Fu Wu's capability to be in the top 10 among peak heaven ultimate gods was not something any normal person could achieve. SHT, the Corpse Palace invited Fu Wu over. This Fu Wu is rumored to be capable of wiping out a group of ordinary peak heaven ultimate gods by himself. Even if Su Han is willing to work with the two of us, we'll only be wiped out by Fu Wu. Sheng Long and the purple dress housemaster were at the brink of desperation. They were still hopeful if only two peak heaven ultimate gods from Star Fort were sent there. There was a possibility of them walking out of the Corpse Palace if Su Han was sufficiently strong. However, they could not see any hope at that moment with Fu Wu personally being there. Fu Wu looked extremely composed even when he was being stared at by the crowd and condescendingly looked at Jian Wushuang. You're Su Han? I've previously heard about you from Shamo. It's really rare for a high-level Heaven Ultimate God to have such power. I can ensure a good future for you if you're willing to join our star fort. Chapter 2697. The Fight with Fu Wu, a Good Future? You people are just a second-rated force. What sort of good future will there be? Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. You're for Wu, right? I really want to see how capable you are that enables you to speak to me like that. The infernal crimson divine swords appeared in front of Jian Wushuang one by one with a total of 9 infernal crimson divine swords. These 9 infernal crimson divine swords merged and a huge black divine sword came bursting through the reincarnation passage before traveling through the void and appeared in front of Fu Wu in the blink of an eye. The black divine sword was incredibly strong, such that an ordinary peak Heaven Ultimate God would not dare look down at it when they see it. However, Fu Wu smiled in disdain as a phantom sword figure formed with a wave of his hand and collided head-on with the black divine sword. As a result, the black divine sword was instantly sent flying outward. The entire sword was trembling crazily as though it was going to break apart. You're really quite strong. Jian Wushuang focused his sight. His reincarnation sword formation was very strong, valiant, and extremely powerful under his full force. However, Fu Wu had yet to unveil his mystical weapon but already could almost break the reincarnation sword formation with the phantom sword formed from his hand wave. There really were not many people who could achieve such strength among peak Heaven Ultimate gods. Show me whatever tricks you have up your sleeves, or you won't have your chance anymore. Fu Wu was still bathed under the sunshine and looked as though he was high above the rest in an extremely detached state. Jian Wushuang's body slightly trembled before activating the 7 Stars secret technique. His divine power was raised to another level upon activating the 7 Stars secret technique. At the same time, a layer of golden armor covered his body amidst surging golden lights that surrounded the entire sky. He had activated all the secret techniques. He owned the 7 Stars secret technique, the 9 Sparkle Star Armor Golden Armor chapter, and the Divine God of Punishment. Jian Wushuang softly yelled, "Let's try again." The black divine sword slightly trembled before bursting out once again. The difference being the black divine sword was much stronger than how it previously was. The 7 Stars secret technique had improved his strength by an entire realm. The 9 Sparkle Star Armor's Golden Armor chapter had raised his combat power by 3 times. The current Jian Wushuang was completely different from his previous self. Fu Wu waved his hand again when he saw the black divine sword once again headed over. A phantom sword swept over just like what had happened moments ago. However, it was slightly brighter than the previous. Both parties collided once again and resulted in bang! The phantom sword directly dimmed down and exploded while the black divine sword continued traveling towards Fu Wu to carry out its attack. Fu Wu slightly frowned and directly attacked using his palm as a sword replacement. Clank! The enormous phantom sword almost separated the void into 2 halves. Clank! A loud metal collision sound was heard before the black divine sword was sent retreating in a shiver. However, Fu Wu's figure was also sent 2 steps backward. Fu Wu stabilized himself after stepping back 2 steps before looking at his slightly tingling palm with an indifferent smile. This is much more interesting. Fu Wu finally took his mystical weapon out. It was a crimson-red battle saber that looked as though it was burning in flames when they first laid eyes on it. Apart from that, Fu Wu's sacred aura skyrocketed as a huge red sun appeared behind him. That crimson-red sun was like the scorching sun rising in the morning that silently suspended behind Fu Wu. A red light appeared in Fu Wu's eyes as he raised his head. Boom! The frightening saber essence suddenly rose. The crimson-red battle saber suddenly took action. The blade directly fell downward. Just like the morning sun rising from the east, the red light shone and lit up the entire sky. Jian Wushuang had a serious look on his face. His overwhelming divine power surged outward as the black divine sword's strength rose once again before headed directly towards the sword with the speed of a meteor falling from the sky. Bang! The violent bang roared in the vast sky. It was as though 2 stars had crazily knocked into each other. The surrounding hall had already broken apart to the extent it had affected the huge buildings around it. Those buildings were also crushed into powder following the attack's aftermath. Many of Corp's palace experts rose to the sky in fright and had already escaped to the distant void from the battlefield. They looked at that scene with widened eyes. Both Sheng Long and the purple dress house master also retreated to the void nearby. Unfortunately, the two of them could not make any moves as Jiu Mo and the other two Peak Heaven ultimate gods from Star Fort were standing beside them, giving them no escaping chances. In the middle of the battlefield. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang looked slightly dire. He had just escaped from a blast before a figure under the red sun's cover had come chasing after him. Fu Wu was holding his battle saber in one hand whilst his facial expression turned cold. A murderous hint appeared in his eyes. Prepare to die. Fu Wu yelled softly. The original young sun that had risen from the east turned into a scorching hot one in the blink of an eye and was burning the entire land. The saber light that swung from Fu Wu's hand had also completely spread out while carrying a raging fire. All the surrounding void turned into a sea of fire upon the appearance of the saber light. As for Jian Wushuang, he suffered the scariest attack amidst the fire. Boom! Endless power came surging from all sides and pushed against Jian Wushuang's body. Jian Wushuang was unable to withstand that degree of attack. He could only rely on his physical protective abilities and forcefully withstand the attack with his own body. Finally, the sea of fire slowly dispersed as heaven and earth calmed down. A humongous red sun was still behind Fu Wu as he stared at the void in front of him before a human figure slowly appeared. Fu Wu was doubtful when he first saw that figure before being surprised by it. In the end, all his emotions turned into disbelief. He might not have died, but why isn't he hurt at all? Fu Wu had indeed seen clearly that Jian Wushuang's divine body did not suffer any harm. He had double armors covering his body. The golden armor on the outer level had already crumbled, but his life armor did not suffer any major damages. His aura did not even suffer and weakened in the slight. Impossible! My attack just now had injured him. No matter how strong his physical protective abilities are, he can't be unharmed. Fu Wu stared at Jian Wushuang. He had no idea that Jian Wushuang had the perfect immortal body as a perfect chaotic creature. He would immediately recover from any wounds as long as his divine power was abundant. Jian Wushuang was wounded by the blow just moments ago. However, he recovered in an instant with divine power to the extent it looked as though nothing had happened to him. Fu Wu, I've to admit that you're really strong. Jian Wushuang stood in the void and had a cold look in his eyes as he looked toward Fu Wu. Chapter 2698. Sweep everything with one move. You're undoubtedly the strongest heaven ultimate god I've seen since stepping foot in the Danyang continent. Unfortunately, you're still unqualified to kill me. Not only that, but you also need to leave behind your life here today. Jian Wushuang's loud noise reverberated across the entire void. The experts looking at the battle from the surrounding area were completely amazed. This Su Han. Sheng Long and the purple dress house master also stared at Jian Wushuang with a hint of expectation in their eyes. On the other hand, Fu Wu had a cold gaze in his eyes. How can you shamelessly brag? Fu Wu once again carried out his attack with the battle saber at hand after shouting. Although he still had a humongous red sun behind him, the saber skill he just used felt like the setting sun. It had a sense of beauty under the autumn breeze. Jian Wushuang glanced at Fu Wu and the 9 infernal crimson divine swords around him once again integrated into a huge black divine sword. This black divine sword once again came rushing outward with shocking power. This is useless. Although your sword formation is very strong, it's only a joke to me, yelled Fu Wu coldly. Really? Jian Wushuang only lightly smiled before raising his palm and pointed toward the void Fu Wu was located. Unlimited powers of space-time law came sweeping over with his finger pointing. Space-time divine technique, a finger pointing heavenly technique. Fu Wu's figure paused in the middle of the void without any warnings. He remained in his attacking position with his saber with the humongous red sun still behind him. However, his actions had completely paused. The space-time paused. It was the finger-pointing heavenly technique. If Jian Wushuang performed that skill at his full capacity, nobody under the Grand Ultimate God Realm could withstand his current strength, unless that person was an expert with an extremely high understanding of space-time law. Even Fu Wu could not do it. He was completely caught in the stagnation of space-time. The space-time stagnation only lasted for a short moment, in less than the time for a person to blink. However, that amount of time was very crucial to experts. It could be seen that the black divine sword Jian Wushuang controlled was like a huge mountain-sized drill directly attacking Fu Wu's divine body without any obstructions. Fu Wu's space-time had just recovered to normal before he was immediately hit by that horrible attack. Even though his body managed to endure the attack, he immediately vomited a mouthful of blood at that moment as the front section of his divine body had sunken in. His figure was immediately thrown backward like a kite with broken strings. "You haven't died from that attack? It looks like your physical protective abilities aren't weak." Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. Fear was written all over Fu Wu's face as he finally stabilized himself. He could feel the wounds he had suffered were quite serious. However, what truly frightened him was the technique Jian Wushuang unleashed just moments ago. He had no idea what happened as the sword formation was some distance away from him before it suddenly knocked onto his divine body. He could not respond nor had the time to block the attack. He was instantaneously wounded badly, which greatly damaged his true strength. What had happened? What skills did Su Han use? Fu Wu was in shock. The unknown was always the most horrifying. He was horrified because he had no idea what Jian Wushuang did moments ago. After all, that attack had managed to wound him badly and he would die if that happened one or two more times. However, the black divine sword once again came toward him under Jian Wushuang's control. "Escape! I have to escape! I'll die if I don't escape!" Those thoughts immediately appeared in Fu Wu's heart and quickly took over his mind. It was his intuition that he achieved after experiencing many extreme battles and near-death escapades before achieving peak heaven ultimate god realm. He also deeply believed in his intuition. Therefore, he did not hesitate at that moment and immediately turned around before running backward at his fastest speed. He opted to escape. The last time he ran away was in a one-on-one battle due to coming across a grand ultimate god. However, he could only escape at that moment despite facing someone who was a realm lower than him. The people around them were stunned by that scene as they were observing the battle. However, Jian Wushuang was unwilling when he saw that Fu Wu wanted to escape. Jian Wushuang could be seen raising his hand once again and pointed to the void where Fu Wu with his finger. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. That technique required an extremely huge amount of divine power to activate it. An ordinary peak heaven ultimate god would not be able to use that technique for a second time after forcefully doing it the first time, even if they had quite a huge solid of divine power. However, Jian Wushuang was different as his divine power was as vast as an ocean. The divine power he used was not even a tenth of his total powers even when using that technique, enabling him to activate that technique several times in a battle. It was his second time activating the technique at that moment. The same scene unfolded once again. Fu Wu was once again paused in the middle of the void. He remained in his escaping posture with no changes to his terrified facial expression. He had completely paused there while the black divine sword that kept following behind him was not affected at all. It once again attacked Fu Wu like a flash of black lightning. At that moment, Fu Wu's divine body could not persist any longer and started falling apart. How's this possible? His space-time had already returned to normal before Fu Wu died. He saw that he was once again attacked and also noticed he was losing his vitality at a crazed speed. He had a horrifying expression on his face and a heart filled with disbelief. However, his life had been completely cut off in the end. 4 with famous top 10 peak heaven ultimate gods in the Danyang continent and second only to the Star Fort Master was killed on the spot. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. This technique is really strong. Jian Wushuang exclaimed uncontrollably when he saw Fu Wu was killed. Regardless of having a heaven ultimate god strength, even if that person could enter the top 10, top 5, or even top 3 positions in the Danyang continent, they would not be able to withstand that attack as long as that person was not good at the spacetime law. He could wipe out 99 of those heaven ultimate gods with just that technique alone. Although Fu Wu was very strong, he was not proficient at the spacetime law and was therefore also included in the 99 range. Fu Wu was killed within 2 moves without any chance of struggling. Jian Wushuang did not have time to use his many skills as a result. Jian Wushuang also exhaled softly after killing Fu Wu before slowly looking over at the Corpse Palace and Star Fort's experts. Fu Wu is dead. The rest of you are next. Chapter 2699. Time for our talk. The surrounding void was silent. The many experts including Shimo and Jiyu Mo from the Corpse Palace, the two Peak Heaven Ultimate Gods from the Star Fort Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master had widened eyes with disbelief written all over their faces. Dead. Fu Wu died. Fu Wu, the top 10 Heaven Ultimate Gods in the Danyang continent, was killed by Su Han. They were slightly stunned as huge waves of emotions surged through the bottoms of their hearts. At the same time, they had deep doubts about the occurrence. What are those skills Su Han used just now? They could see the scene moments ago. They saw Jian Wushuang pointing from a distance and Fu Wu rendered unable to move. His immobility had allowed Jian Wushuang to directly kill him. Such a scene had occurred twice, with Fu Wu heavily wounded the first and directly killed in the second time. However, they had no idea what skill Jian Wushuang had used. They also had no idea how Jian Wushuang managed to stop an extremely strong Peak Heaven Ultimate God from moving in such a short amount of time. However, they knew that the technique Jian Wushuang used was horrifying. At that moment, Fu Wu is dead. All of you'll be next. Jian Wushuang's cold and emotionless voice could be heard echoing between heaven and earth. Corpse Palace experts' faces, including Shimo and Jiyu Mo, immediately darkened. How could they block his attack if even Fu Wu could not withstand Jian Wushuang's techniques and was directly killed? Boom! The violent golden divine power sea once again surged as Jian Wushuang's aura seemed as though it had reached the heavens. His eyes looked at the Corpse Palace experts with a strong intent to kill. Attack together! Shimo shouted as a huge amount of Deathlaw strength crazily burst outward. He wanted to gather the 4 Peak Heaven Ultimate Gods' powers and work together with Jiyu Mo and the 2 Star Fort's Peak Ultimate Heaven Gods to fight Jian Wushuang. Jiyu Mo and the other 2 Star Fort's Peak Heaven Ultimate Gods also wanted to work together. However, Jian Wushuang pointed his finger again before the others could approach him. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. It was the same technique, but he used it on Shimo at that moment. Fu Wu had died and the strongest person was none other than the Corpse Palace's Shimo, hence Jian Wushuang naturally focused on him first. Even Fu Wu could not withstand that a finger-pointing heavenly technique. Although Shimo had a high understanding of the death law, his understanding was not on space-time law. The space-time he was located immediately froze with him altogether and rendered Shimo immobile. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang's body suddenly shook. His figure appeared in front of the frozen Shimo as though he had teleported. He then waved his Blood Mountain sword. The sword was beautiful in a sad way. It was so beautiful that it could break a person's heart. There was even a hint of perplexity which caused people to be intoxicated by it. The surrounding experts in the voids were uncontrollably attracted by that sword light and soon intoxicated by it as it swept away. Although it was slightly uncomfortable, there was an endless aftertaste as though they had gotten drunk after having several drinks. The space-time sword technique's 7th form enchanted. Under the poignant and intoxicating sword technique, the frozen Shimo did not have any capabilities to fight back and was instantly beheaded. 2 space-time blade was activated at the same time before smashing Shimo's divine body into powder. Shimo immediately died. Big brother! Jiyu Mo stopped moving after shrieking loudly. He glanced at Jian Wushuang coldly but turned to escape the next moment. He was not the only one, as even the 2 Star Fort's Peak Heaven Ultimate Gods had also started escaping with a crazed attitude. They knew clearly that if Shimo was still alive, they might have an opportunity to fight against Jian Wushuang if the 4 of them worked together. However, only 3 were left after Shimo's instantaneous death. There was no room for them to fight back anymore. Therefore, they could only escape. They did not have the time to even care for the Corpse Palace. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold when he saw the 3 of them escape. He then pointed his finger again. Among the 2 Star Fort's Peak Heaven Ultimate Gods, one of them was frozen on the spot without any warnings. Jian Wushuang's body slightly moved and easily killed the Peak Heaven Ultimate God. However, Jiyu Mo and the other Peak Heaven Ultimate God had already escaped beyond the range of Jian Wushuang's secret technique while he was killing the Peak Heaven Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang could no longer chase after them, so he could only let the two of them escape. Those two had managed to escape, but their location was the Corpse Palace, which meant that Jiu Mo had completely given up his territory. As for the Corpse Palace experts, they attack once Jian Wushuang gave the order. Jian Wushuang had not given any orders. However, the Divine Sword Army commander, Long Shan, could perceive huge changes in the Corpse City and knew there was a crazy battle between experts occurring. Hence he directly attacked without waiting for Jian Wushuang's orders. Unfortunately, they still arrived late. They saw many Corpse Palace experts surrendering to Jian Wushuang when they arrived. That scene caused many Divine Sword Army soldiers to be flabbergasted as they wondered what had happened. It looked like their Alliance Master had wiped out the Corpse Palace from their observation. However, their Alliance Master was alone. Long Shan, I'll hand these people in the Corpse Palace to you. In addition, send a message to ask Dong Shui and He Yang for personnel to take over the Corpse Palace's territory, said Jian Wushuang. Yes. Long Shan nodded solemnly. Jian Wushuang turned his line of sight after speaking over towards Shenglong and the purple dress house master at the void beside them. It looks like it's time for our talk. Jian Wushuang smiled mysteriously. Chapter 2700. Subdued. Shenglong and the purple dress house master were very worried. Initially, when they realized the real purpose of the Corpse Palace and knew that they were trapped in the situation, they hoped that Jian Wushuang would show his strength and join them to fight the Corpse Palace. Surprisingly, Jian Wushuang took care of Corpse Palace by himself. Jian Wushuang had beheaded the Corpse Palace master on the spot, as well as for Wu, who was invited by the Corpse Palace master. His strength was too terrifying. Both Shenglong and purple dress house master were taken aback. Jian Wushuang's strength was so terrifying that it sent chills when they saw the weird smile on Jian Wushuang's face. Shenglong and the purple dress house master immediately had a bad premonition. They also recalled something. Although the Corpse Palace had great ambitions to swallow all of the forces, at least the Corpse Palace was more sensible and had not taken the initiative to act on any of the forces before. However, the Sword Alliance was obviously more ambitious than Corpse Palace and with more sophisticated methods. The Sword Alliance had taken down 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gangwon after Nothrit was a bloodbath. The Sword Alliance was going to bag Corpse Palace anytime soon. Would the Sword Alliance Master Su Han be willing to let the two of them Shenglong and Purple Dress House Master go? Alliance Master Su Han, thank you for your action today in stopping the Corpse Palace from carrying out their treacherous tricks and allowing the Divine Dragon Pavilion to be safe. I'll prepare a generous gift and send it personally to the Sword Alliance to express my deepest gratitude after the incident, said Shenglong. The Purple Dress House is also very thankful. The Purple Dress House will do our best to help if Alliance Master Su Han needs any help in the future, said the Purple Dress House Master. They dared not get on Jian Wushuang's wrong side and took the initiative to lower their pride in hopes that Jian Wushuang would let them go. Jian Wushuang sneered after hearing them out. I must say that the two of you are clever. You're going to be disappointed if you think that simply being thankful or a generous gift will settle the past bad blood between us. I'm not interested in listening to your words of gratitude and generous gifts. What I'm keen on are both your territories and experts. Shenglong and the Purple Dress House Master were startled. As I've said before, I've no opinion on Palace Master Jiu Mo's proposal. That's exactly what I wanted to do, to be precise. I also want to bring the third-rated forces together and form a brand new force. The only difference is that the new force must be called the Sword Alliance with me as the absolute leader. Do you both have any opinions? Jian Wushuang smiled. Shenglong and the Purple Dress House Master were extremely furious but dared not refute. Jian Wushuang's purpose was obviously the same as the Corpse Palaceto take over the two forces. In addition, Jian Wushuang was obviously stronger than Corpse Palace. The situation seemed to like they had just painstakingly sent away a wolf, but ended up with a new and worse enemy like a ferocious tiger. Why are the two unwilling? Jian Wushuang stared at the two in front of him with a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. He need not do anything as he believed the two people in front of him should understand their situation laid before them. The two of them had no choice at all. Shenglong and the Purple Dress House Master indeed were looking helplessly at each other. Shenglong said after a while, Alliance Master Su Han, what will happen to us after the Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House Master merged into the Sword Alliance? Nothing will change, as it's just a simple integration. All the experts from both the pavilion and house will be given a position in the alliance based on their strength. Those with tyrannical strength can also join the Divine Sword official army. I'm sure all of them can be integrated into the Sword Alliance. As for the two of you, Jian Wushuang glanced at Xianxia and Purple Dress Housemaster. You know that the overall strength of the Sword Alliance isn't weak, with me having the highest combat power at the peak Heaven Ultimate God Realm. If both of you join the Sword Alliance, you'll only be under myself and my chief steward, who is also my maid. I plan to set up another battle hall in the Sword Alliance such that only those above the high-level Heaven Ultimate Gods could join. Both of you can choose to be part of it and become the leader of the battle hall, or you can join the Divine Sword Official Army and become a member of the Divine Sword Official Army. You will neither suffer nor be wronged in Sword Alliance, no matter which you choose, as your cultivation realm is obviously peak Heaven Ultimate God Realm. Moreover, our Sword Alliance has sufficient resources. You'll get to enjoy more resources from the Sword Alliance every year the stronger you are, said Jian Wushuang. Xianxia and the Purple Dress Housemaster were moved after listening to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's offers were not great, but they dared not turn him down. If this is the case, Divine Dragon Pavilion agrees to be part of the Sword Alliance and respect Master Su Han as our leader, said Xianxia likewise with the Purple Dress House. The Purple Dress House Master nodded in agreement. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Alliance Master Su Han, Divine Dragon Pavilion has agreed to surrender. I'll return and summon all the experts to make the announcement, said Xianxia. Hold on. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. You only made a verbal agreement. Although the two of you have agreed now, there's no guarantee that you won't regret it when you return to your respective forces. I'll have wasted my efforts if that happened, won't I? Xianxia and the Purple Dress House Master's expressions sank. Alliance Master Su Han, don't you believe us? Xianxia asked in a low voice. It's not that I don't believe the two of you, but there must be a shorty. It's okay if the two of you leave now, but you have to let me leave an oppression in your body without struggling. Jian Wushuang smiled. Leave an oppression? Xianxia and Purple Dress House Master were shocked. An oppression left in the body was equivalent to one's life being under the other party's control. One must never violate the other party's order from then on. Otherwise, the other party could kill them by manipulating the oppression. It was a method to control the other party which was quite similar to soul control. The difference was that soul control would erase the subject's own consciousness and become absolutely loyal to the owner without any doubt. On the other hand, leaving an oppression in the body would not have any effect on the subject's consciousness, thoughts, strength, or other areas. It was merely to control the subject by placing a stern reminder in the body. Hence the subject dared not disobey the other party's orders. Although the method to leave an oppression in the body was not as bad as soul control, it would still make the subject feel extremely anxious.